Oh, they're the best team in the Irish League.
Good side. Championship.
The Stadium of Light.
Absolutely. Fantastic. After 19 years, great achievement. They deserved it because they played with heart and got a small squad and small support, so anything they got, they really deserved it.
Could have done it today, didn't we?
Brilliant that was.
What do you think of Crusaders?
They're champions.
What do you want them to support?
Cruise.
What do you think of Crusaders?
Champions.
All the best ever team out.
Brilliant. Best in the Irish League.
Magic.
Best team in the world.
What do you think of Crusaders?
Champions. Best team in the Irish League. Always have been.
Excuse me, what do you think of Crusaders? That's a good answer. God moves in mysterious ways, his wonders to perform. And who could argue that something moved down the Shore Road in the year 1995? Move number one was that of the Irish League Championship, which left the sideboard at Windsor Park and fitted neatly and deservedly into the trophy cabinet at Seaview. Pipped at the post 2 consecutive seasons previously, the Super Crews, formerly known as the Hatchet Men, set the record straight once and for all. Crowned in the sunshine at Ballymena, the Crews clinched their first title in 19 years, something we all knew would happen months before, such was the extent of their winning margin. Hatchet men no more, however, Christian men more like, as a posse of players became born again in every sense of the word, earning the nickname God Squad. Formed back in 1898, the name Crusaders evolved from the days of the old Crusaders, European Christians whose objective was to recover the Holy Land from the Muslims. The objective of the modern-day Crusaders, however, was to win the Irish League Championship, and going back to their roots, how the Crews did it in style. Even King Richard, one of the most famous Crusaders, would have been proud of the modern-day Crews. He was known as Richard the Lionheart, and it was certainly a lion-hearted performance which helped the Crews defeat greater empires such as Linfield, Glentoran, Glenavon and Portadown. Like the tale of David and Goliath, Crusaders' 1995 title success was achieved against all odds. From as early as November, it was a triumph that was never in doubt. But when did Crusaders manager Roy Walker first believe his side could win that league championship?
Well, we got our noses in front after Christmas, and the gap seemed to open up, and as the weeks went by it opened up even further. So that was when the little butterflies came out of the tummy and started flapping their wings, and the sense of anticipation was there. But certainly with about 6 games to go, the finishing line was in touch, and it was a matter of, you know, after one game, or if we win the next one, we're only 3 points away from it, and we could see the finishing line. So probably in fairness, it was about January time, and we're glad to get to the finishing line coming April.
And who stood out for you during the season? Anybody in particular?
Oh, everybody stood out. It'd be unfair to pick out individuals, but I mean, it was a real team performance, and it was a team that started and a team that finished that got us through. So I wouldn't pick out anyone particularly.
Would it be fair to say this was the best moment in your football career personally?
Yes, in football, certainly as a player you only have to look after yourself, but as a manager you've got to mollycoddle and cajole and put your arm around all sorts of people. So, you know, far and away the biggest moment for me.
And what does the championship mean to a small club like Crusaders?
Well, I think you're getting a knock-on effect from everyone. You get more coming to the games, you get more people attending the social club, you get more people on the road sort of way allying themselves with Crusaders. You know, they're becoming Crusader people just because it has happened on the road, and the effects go right through the district, you know.
The formalities complete, the champagne popped, and the championship flag destined to fly over Seaview in 1996. Even in the opening month of September, Crusaders showed the flair and quality that would become familiar throughout the season. Indeed, they stormed to the top on 6 points, and apart from trailing the Ports in October, they led all the way.
They've led the league before and stumbled around Christmas time. This time there wasn't any stumbling. They just kept on going, in fact increasing their league all the time.
There's no doubt that the goals which won the 1995 title were of the highest quality, so why not sit back and enjoy some of them? Surprisingly, Crusaders crashed to their first league defeat on Saturday, December 10th, a 2-1 home defeat by Ards. But Roy Walker's men were soon comforted by the news that their two main challengers also lost. Although a bit of a shock, the defeat didn't affect their championship plans.
That was the only game they lost, really, in the run into the championship. It was a bit of a surprise, but at the same time, they didn't lose any ground, and I think that gave them a lot of heart at that time.
But if the Crews had a strength, not to mention a secret, it was that of team spirit, which proved to be a major contributing factor in their extraordinary success.
Well, there's 8 of us now at the club that are born-again Christians, and there's a Holy Spirit as well as a team spirit, and that certainly plays its part, because it gives you a strength that otherwise wouldn't be there, and it's not apparent to everybody. But that's the most important thing in our lives, I think, is the witness we have for the Lord Jesus Christ, and I wouldn't change that for anything, and if it rubs off on other people, then we'll say hallelujah to that.
I've been playing this game for 11 years, and To come to a dressing room like ours was just absolutely extraordinary to see the guys, the way they mixed together, the spirit in the camp, and it was just phenomenal to be part of it all season.
Certainly the arrival of Stephen Baxter to the club was not so much by royal appointment as divine appointment. The former Linfield and Distillery star was the jewel in the crown, scoring 22 times, one short of top scorer Glenn Hunter. Baxter was already a born-again Christian, not to mention a championship winner before he joined the Shore Road club, but admits that the season with the Crews was a heaven-sent experience.
It was a very sweet occasion last year. You know, the boys had to work extremely hard. When you have a small panel of players, it's different to what Linfield have, and when you win it, sometimes the way we've done, it's a wee bit sweeter, and that's the way it was last year.
And top scorer, Will, that must have been a tremendous feeling as well.
Well, yes, it's been one of my best seasons for quite some time, and Glenn Hunter and myself both got in among the goals all season, and as I say, when they start flowing like that there, you get on a bit of a run, and sometimes it becomes easy.
And many successes with the Blues, of course. How does this championship win compare with that?
Well, all championship successes are sweet. You know, the two that I won with Linfield were very sweet as well, which is an awful lot of effort required over the whole season. You know, this championship that we won with Crusaders was extra special because of the small squad that we have, and you're relying on limited resources, and the boss pulled together a lot of players from down south and from up north, and it gelled very well together, and we came up trumps this year with winning the championship.
The Crews title march became relentless. Approaching Christmas, they were 5 points clear, as memories of 1973 and 76, the last time the club lifted the title, began to surface. One of the remaining men from that era is coach Roy MacDonald, who played in the 76 championship winning side, but reckons both experiences to be equally sweet.
Well, it was just the same feeling, John, winning the league championship, actually, because it was fantastic. Nobody had given us any chance at the beginning of the season, and it was much the same as in 1976. We were just dark horses, and we went and done the business.
And there wasn't one that gave you more pleasure than the other, was there?
No, none whatsoever, because the only thing I didn't do in last year's league championship winning team was actually go out and play, but you were clearing every ball and that in defence, and it was just great satisfaction.
By Christmas, the Crews were top of the Pops, a massive 8 points clear of the chasing pack, following a sparkling 2-0 win over Glentoran at the Oval. The signs that they would emulate the 70s successes were now becoming ominous.
That's when we were expecting them to falter. Around that time, it's when the suspensions and injuries and things, that's when you need a really strong squad. But what we hadn't accounted for this season with Crusaders was the fact that they had a really terrific team spirit which kept them going whenever the side was perhaps weaker than it should have been.
But just like when the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon and came to prove him with hard questions, similar hard questions were being asked of Crusaders. Who is this wise manager called Walker? How does he motivate his inexpensive but nevertheless highly effective troops? The palaces of the Metropolitan Church was the answer, as every Saturday morning a number of the team players would meet up for a warm-up consisting of breakfast, followed, would you believe, by a session of prayer. And if you think that's unusual, although not all of the Crusaders Christians worship there regularly, many have been known to attend Sunday worship at the new tabernacle. One of those players is skipper Sid Burrows.
We got together 16 good bunch of lads, you know, and Roy Walker has a lot to be commended for what he has done, and Tony O'Connell and Roy McDonald. And naturally, as I say, with a few Christians in the team, which helped as well, you know.
And was that the big crucial difference to keeping the harmony there?
Well, the harmony there comes with, you know, as your brother yourself, that, you know, if you have love in your life, you know, and God is love, and we've shown that together, that we've got the bond together as a team. And before we go out to every game, we get the hands together and have a wee moment in ourselves, you know.
Of course, not every player is a born-again Christian, but the others seem to accept the faith very well, didn't they?
Well, they do indeed. As I say, I mean, we've 6 players from down south at the place for our team, and it's great that they can accept us and we can accept them, you know. But we always get our message across, you know, and it's good team spirit.
But is there a place for Christians in sport? That question was put to the pastor of the Metropolitan Church, James McConnell, himself delighted by Crusaders' title success, even though he is a self-confessed Linfield fan.
I want to congratulate Crusaders for winning the Irish League, and delighted for them because they're a small club and they've beat the best, and it's lovely to see some of their players who have come to Christ and how they're witnessing for the Lord. And I have spoken to some of them over the months as they used to come into the restaurant and have a time of fellowship. And what struck me was some of them used to go into the corner here of the church and have a time of prayer together before they went up to the ground, which I thought was good, to keep themselves right as they're playing before hundreds of people, and they've got a testimony to keep. And I admired that greatly, and I want to say that I appreciate these young men very much indeed.
And that time of prayer, of course, helped them pip Linfield, your old club, for the league title, didn't it?
I don't know whether the Lord helped them or not, but as the man says, once a blue man, always a blue man, but the blues always come back, you know.
Is there a place, do you think, Pastor, for Christianity in sport?
Of course there is. There's a place for Christianity everywhere. And these young men are playing in front of thousands of people, and their testimonies are important. And the word testimony just doesn't mean saying I was saved at a certain date. Testimony is lifestyle, and their lifestyle is important in the eyes of people who are watching them. They are spectators. And it's like Paul in the book of Hebrews talking about the Olympic Games, and you know, he talks about the witnesses, you know, and the witnesses of the heroes of faith. And these young men are playing in front of witnesses, and I trust that their example and their testimony will reach out and attract others and win them to Christ.
Divinely inspired or not, by January 14th, the Crews were an amazing 16 points ahead. The Ireland Saturday Night headline read, "Crews race 16 clear," and its opening paragraph had a very familiar ring about it.
Oh yes, that was the old Ken Wilson home line. They think it's all over. It most certainly is now. Well, I thought so. I mean, you can say there's a long way to go, but when you're 16 points clear, there's no way you're going to lose a lead like that.
Certainly no championship winning side is without the odd hero, 2 of which were undoubtedly goalkeeper Kevin McKeown and physio Jock Gilmore. McKeown was voted a triple player of the year by the Castlereagh Glentoran Supporters Club, his own club, and of course picked up the most prestigious award, that of Football Writers Player of the Year. For him, the title was a triumph both in a club and personal sense.
It was icing on the cake for me personally, you know, after all the hard work and training and stuff. But you know, the best thing about last year was obviously winning the league, and it's good that, you know, the club and all the players get some recognition at the end of the season as well.
And Gold won the championship, but a goalkeeper vital to any team. Are there any memorable games that you can pick out?
Yeah, well, there's so many. I think the most vital game for us was our away game to Coleraine in January. January had previously been a sort of season where we dropped points and we were notorious for not doing so well. But we went up to Coleraine and they were in form, and we scored an early goal and I think we won the game 1-0. So we kept a clean sheet when it counted. But over the piece, all the big games, we seemed to win, or at least not lose them, you know, when it mattered.
What was it like playing behind a team that could win the league championship?
It was excellent, you know. I mean, I have to give my hats off to take my hat off to my defence, which starts from the front to back. But you know, the four in front of me, you know, Glenn Dunlop, Baron Callahan, etc. You know, they were absolutely brilliant all season.
Was there any time when the pressure was on you personally?
No, not really. Obviously, when you're up challenging at the top of the table, you feel pressure in every game, and so you should, because every game becomes more important. However, you know, I put a lot of pressure on myself personally, and so the pressure's there all the time.
And finally, was it the greatest moment of your career?
Oh, by all means. You know, it's great to be a winner, and people like winners as well. And it was great to, I mean, it's the biggest prize in Irish League football, and you know, we're such a close squad here. It was great seeing, you know, smiling faces about here, and it was just absolutely fabulous for the whole club.
If McCune was a hero on the field, off it physio Gilmore worked his own brand of wonders, his wealth of experience being called on more than once. And Gilmore wasn't found wanting, as his experience was required at crucial times.
We had to work very hard. I was doing full time at home and here night and day with Mr. Baxter and Kevin, Sid Burrows, one or two more came to the house to get treated just like a professional, and that's what should be done with all players.
The team spirit was something special, wasn't it?
Terrific. You can't beat it. It's terrific down here. I've never been in a club, and I've been with 4 clubs, and this is the best club I've been with for harmony and cooperation. It's fantastic.
Before long, the same spirit had transferred to the terraces as the Cruise faithful began to sense the title was on its way to Seaview. As Stephen Baxter explains, the fans may have been a small band, but they made a lot of noise when it mattered most.
Again, having come from Linfield, where the fans demand an awful lot from their players and expect to win championships, you know, our boys were just on the crest of a wave because the numbers grew steadily every week. As you say, it wasn't a really big band, but the ones who were there were very vocal, and coming in towards the championship, Roy was asking them to lift their voices because they got a bit tense and apprehensive, just the way we were when we got sort of close to the finishing line. But thankfully in the end, they rode us on to the success, and it was magnificent.
Songs like We're Red, We're Black and I'll Walk a Million Miles for One of Your Goals became a regular sound from the terraces, both at home and away. Once dubbed the Nearly Men, the Crews were nearly there. An early exit from the Bass Irish Cup, although disappointing for Crusaders, now allowed them to apply total concentration towards those league title aspirations. As usual though, they confounded their critics by winning 1-0 at Shamrock Park on February 25th. Never an easy place to get a result, the outcome meant that it would now be a race for second place, as everyone including the Irish League Tea ladies knew that the 1995 title was on its way to Seaview. That day was significant in more ways than one, however. Defender Glenn Dunlop in particular explains why.
It was the day of my mother's funeral, and that was when I took a decision to play in that game against Portadown. I felt it right to do so, and I just felt that my mother would have wanted me to play, and I just relied on the Lord for my strength, and that's where the inner strength came from. And I went out and we had a good game, we played well, and I beat Portadown 1-0 down there, which sort of set us on our way. Any team that goes down to Shamrock Park and comes away with a victory, I think, are doing very well, you know, and we were one of the few teams that do that.
And earlier in the season, of course, you made an important decision in your life which changed your form dramatically, didn't it?
Yes, most definitely. That was when I accepted Christ as my saviour, and it has helped me in all walks of life, even in the football, you know, because you're not abusing your body, you're not doing the things that you would normally do as an unsaved person, and it has only benefited me in every way.
The Shamrock success certainly set off some early celebrations. March and April was a cruise for the Crews in what turned out to be one of the most one-sided Irish League championships for years.
We were running out of headlines to say that Crusaders, we were actually hoping they would soon wrap it up so as we could just get our final champions headline done, because it was obvious they were going to win it. But that time, it was almost as if we'd lost interest in Crusaders. It was like the olden days when you had the 60s and you had the Beatles were always going to be at #1 and you were wondering what would finish #2. We were more interested then in Glenavon, Linfield, Portadown, how they were actually going to finish in second place, because it was almost boring. It was just a procession.
By April Fool's Day, the Crews had made fools of everyone. Instead of flinching at the thought of a difficult away game at Ballymena, they clinched their first title in 19 years with a typically clinical and professional performance. Warden Street, Ballymena became Coronation Street for Crusaders. They only required a point from the game, but for the 20th time in a remarkable season, landed all three to the delight of hundreds of Seaview fans. But not everything ran smoothly that day. A change in plans by the Irish League meant that Crusaders had to wait until their next home game before getting their hands on the coveted cup, something Chairman Jim Semple says didn't spoil celebrations too much.
They asked me about the trophy presentation at Ballymena, and I asked them, they wanted to know did we want it in the showgrounds, and I said no, but if you would keep it up the road at Harryville roundabout and bring it down if we get the desired result, we would much appreciate that. But they had something else on their mind on that Saturday, so it didn't really spoil it that much. We just celebrated on 2 occasions instead of 1.
Patience is a virtue.
Patience is a virtue.
Patience certainly was the quality that helped a little club like Crusaders from Belfast Shore Road lift the largest prize. And despite their critics, Crusaders proved them all wrong.
I remember doing a radio programme before the league started and bringing in a few football writers, and nobody mentioned Crusaders. I mean, you try to assess the situation, and you look at the Portadowns, the Glenavons and the Linfields and so on, and nobody really thought about Crusaders, even though they were a fairly good side. But then as the season progressed, and you could see how they were playing, how they were winning, because winning becomes a habit, and all of a sudden you have to sit back and say, it's not impossible. And I think why people maybe didn't go for Crusaders to win the league is, well, I said, they don't really have any big stars, but they're just a very good team doing a job. Well, they did that job very consistently, and Roy Walker was very happy to win the league, and of course to remind us that nobody had given them a prayer. Well, they certainly had a prayer at the end of the day.
Roy Walker is an excellent manager, but I remember last season I rang him up once, and he stopped for a moment and said, you know, Malcolm, nobody really loves us. That was, of course, a reference to the press. And I had quite a degree of sympathy with him, because at the start of the season, nobody really gave Crusaders much of a chance. They continued to win right up to Christmas. And it was not until then that the newspapermen, myself included, got onto the bandwagon. But from then until the very end of the season, I think he got due credit. And you only have to look at the awards given by the Northern Ireland Football Writers Association to see that. But earlier on, he had certainly justification.
I think people in the press did tend to write them off. They just thought they didn't have the calibre to do it. They hadn't won the league for so long. They didn't really look at their squad in depth enough. But if you did have a really good look at the Crusader squad, then it was obvious that they had the depth and the talented players to do it.
The 1995 success is described as the Crew's finest hour. Even better than 1976, when they not only won the title, but gave the great Liverpool a run for their money.
Particularly the match at Anfield, it was a magnificent occasion. Here was this little team, virtually unknown from Northern Ireland, the working man's club, coming to the Kop, to a magnificent football scene in Britain. Here they were putting up a tremendous show, only beaten 2-0, and applauded off the pitch by the Liverpool Kopites. To me, it was one of the most memorable occasions, I think, in Irish League football, and I really was so proud to be part of the Crusaders delegation that travelled over by a special aircraft, another first for the club.
And how does Malcolm compare the 76 team with the champs of 95?
I have a feeling that the current side is a much more all-round accomplished one. I think it's got greater tactical awareness, and I think there's a lot more skill, particularly in midfield, inspired of course by Sid Burrows. But I think the real success story at Seaview is the team spirit, the camaraderie amongst all the players, with everybody working for each other. There are no outstanding stars as such. They're all players, they're all lads, and they really get down together, and their objective is to win, and to win in a most commanding and impressive way.
And the big question everyone is asking is, can they do it again?
We're not going to write them off this year. As I say, last year we wrote them off to a man, myself included. I didn't think they had the strength and depth. What I didn't understand was really the significance, or what I didn't envisage was the significance that the signing of Stephen Baxter would have, the significance of how well Liam Dunn would come into the midfield and do so well, and that spirit in the club I was with them in Europe recently, and tremendous spirit, and that kept them going the whole way. And when you have that, when you actually like your manager, it helps. And the players like the manager. The manager gets on with the players. Some of these big clubs where you want to play for the club, but you don't necessarily like the manager. But with Crusaders, it seems to be a good happy medium. I'm not going to write them off again. I mean, I've seen them at close quarters now in the run into the last championship, and they're as good as they come. And I'm glad I'm going on the record as saying this, because I don't want people to turn to me on Christmas and say, "Oh, you're always writing us off," because I'm not this season.
The question the supporters want to know, obviously, is can you win it again?
Well, I don't see why not. I think if the players retain the same hunger and the same desire and show that passion that we've become used to here, there's no reason why we can't be in there competing. Obviously, other teams have strengthened their squads, and you know, I think we've strengthened ours sufficiently as well. So if the players have the will to win, then we've got a good chance.
That will to win was certainly evident throughout the season. In the end, Crusaders' performances became a privilege to watch.
It certainly was a privilege to be involved, especially on the last day when the cup came out and Big Kirk Hunter opened the champagne and Seaview went absolutely wild. Some people say that Crusaders don't welcome the media in with open arms. They don't like to talk to them, but let me tell you, that is not the case at all. Seaview welcomed me, Crusaders welcomed me, not just onto the pitch, not just into the dressing room. Anytime you wanted interviews and anytime you wanted to socialise after the game, they were always there to invite you in. They've got a great squad, they're a great bunch of lads, and there's no reason why they can't win the league again this year.
As for the year 1995, there was only one road to heaven, wasn't there? Crusaders, with a little help from above perhaps, found that road on and off the park. On it, who could forget the shrewd management of wily team manager Roy Walker, voted by the football writers as manager of the year, one of the easiest choices for years. There was the safe hands of goalkeeper Kevin McKeown, and a back four which stood firm against all opposition. Not forgetting the midfield industry of Liam Dunn and Martin Murray, and the wing brilliance of team captain Sid Burrows, a man whose jinking runs and goals were a treat to watch. But the influence of goal grabbers Glenn Hunter and Stephen Baxter, who hit the back of their opponents' nets not regularly but relentlessly, cannot be underestimated either. Other top performers, too numerous to mention, all helped to make the Crews worthy winners of Irish League football's most coveted crown. No wonder the Crews were voted Team of the Year at the Belfast Telegraph Sports Awards for 1995, a proud moment for manager Roy Walker. Off the pitch, remarkably, no less than 9 players and officials are today born-again Christians, having found what they believe is the only road to heaven that matters, the salvation of Jesus Christ. From the manager to the boy who cleans the boots, the birth of the God Squad had made Crusaders more than just a football club. So what does season 1996 hold in store? As always, time will provide the answer. One thing is certain, retaining the title is going to be a very tall order. With a new Premier League consisting of the country's top 8 teams, the Crews will have to be even more consistent if they are to hold on to the champions tag. Impossible? The Crews will tell you all things are possible to those who believe. And with last season's championship memory still fresh, who could argue?
Can it be that it was all so simple then? Or has time rewritten every line? And if we had the chance to do it all again, tell me, would we? Could we? Memories like the corners of my mind, misty watercolor memories of the way we were. Scattered pictures of the smiles we left behind, smiles we gave to one another for the way we were. every line. And if we had the chance to do it all again, tell me, would we? Could we? Memories may be beautiful and yet what's too painful to remember, we simply choose to forget. So with the laughter, we will remember. Whenever we remember the way we were. Remember the way we were. Do, do,